How's it going, everyone? I'm Dylan, this is All You Can Board, and this is our brand new studio. This is actually the first video that we're shooting in the new studio. I thought you guys weren't going to get a look at it until sometime in, the second week of April or something like that. But of course, Fantasy Flight Games knows exactly when to announce new heroes. They look at my calendar and they check when is Dylan going to have the hardest time getting content out, and that's when they pencil it in, because I was moving on April 1st. And of course, I open up my phone like midday, and I find out that they've announced a brand new Marvel Champions hero. This is the soonest I was able to do it, and it means that you guys are getting an early look at the new studio earlier than I expected. So you're going to notice that the next couple videos on the channel, or a couple more of the videos in the coming weeks, are going to go back to the old studio. It's because we shot some stuff already in the old studio that I thought was going to be going out first. But this video, as well as the Sinister Motives content next week, will be in the new studio, and I think there'll be one more a video in the old studio after that, and then it'll be all new studio from then on. So we're really excited to be in this new space. It has a completely different look than obviously what we did before, and some stuff might still change, obviously, because I'm shooting in this a little bit sooner than I thought. There wasn't time to really try out some other things and see which one works. So this is what it looks like now. There might be some adjustments, especially when Carlo and I are both on camera. You might see some different looks. I have my big shelf that you used to see off to the side here that you guys can't see right now. We might shoot that direction sometimes, but anyways, enough about the new studio. Hope you guys like the look. We have a really cool, a really weird, cool hero to talk about today, and that is Spider-Ham. So Spider-Ham is the new Marvel Champions hero. They announced it on April Fool's Day, which is honestly the best day they could have picked to announce this, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people thought, myself included, this was just an April Fool's joke. But it is a legitimate new hero, and they really leaned into the cartoon elements as well as the ridiculousness of this character. Even in the wording of some of the, we'll get to it in a second, but the wording of some of the abilities, some of the things that it'll say for you to do is just outrageous. So lots of fun that they have with this hero, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun to play, and it honestly seems like a pretty strong hero too. So let's kick things off with the alter ego, which is Peter Porker. So this is a recovery 5, hit points 12, hand size of 6. The ability is cartoon power, which is response. After you make a basic recovery, place 1 toon counter on Peter Porker. So toon counters are the mechanic that is unique to Peter Porker and Spider-Ham in general, and a lot of the ability cards are going to use toon counters, and a lot of the power comes from the existence of toon counters. So it's hard to really get a full gauge of how powerful this hero is without knowing how hard it is to get toon counters and how hard it is to maintain them. We can get a bit of an idea based on the cards that give toon counters, but the ways that you get them are limited. So one of them is using your recovery, which means that when you flip to alter ego, if you're able to flip and use your recovery that turn, and then use your recovery again before you flip back the next turn, you're gonna get 2 toon counters max every single time you flip. Generally, that's max you're gonna get. I think a lot of times you may only get 1, depending if you're wanting to do other things with the hero. But overall, getting toon counters is a boon for this hero. So using the alter ego for that and getting almost guaranteed 2 if you want them every single time is going to be pretty powerful. And obviously the recovery of 5 is huge, and hit points are pretty good at 12 as well. Jumping into Spider-Ham himself, the stat line is a bit weak, so that's 2 thwart, 1 attack, 1 defense. But again, we're going to see that he makes up for that in a lot of other powerful ways. So the ability here is for each toon counter on Spider-Ham can be spent as if it were a wild resource, which means that you have so many capabilities and cards you can play from your hand now with the existence of this ability, because if you have built up, say, 4 or 5 toon counters, you know when you normally get those hands in Marvel Champions, you're like, oh my god, there's so much I want to play here. Which ones do I play? Which ones do I use as resources and sacrifice to be able to play other things? Potentially now you're going to be able to play a majority of your hand, or a lot more of your hand, if you've built up a lot of toon counters with Spider-Ham. So that's actually really exciting, the fact that the toon counters are used in other areas, but in addition to that, you'll always also be able to use them as wild resources. You're never going to have dead counters. They can always be used as something if you want them to. The other ability here is Spider Nonsense. Response: after Spider-Ham takes any amount of damage, place 1 toon counter on him. So those are the 2 main ways you're going to add toon counters: using recovery and alter ego, or just taking damage. And that's why I say it's kind of hard to gauge the power level of Spider-Ham, is because taking damage to gain toon counters isn't always going to be a reliable thing to do. You might be low on toon counters and think, I need counters right now, I don't want to switch to alter ego, but you're going to have to wait to take damage in order to get them, which isn't always going to be consistent and isn't always going to be efficient either. But again, if it was something you could just say, exhaust the hero and get a counter, that would be way too powerful as we get into the cards and see how powerful toon counters really are. So overall, really neat abilities. The wild resource, the existence of that for the toon counters is very powerful, even though the stat line is a little bit weak. Jump into the first card that we're going to look at. This is a zero-cost event called Ham It Up. So hero action, thwart, remove one threat from a scheme for each toon counter on Spider Ham. This is really potentially very powerful. For 0, being able to just remove an amount of threat equal to your toon counters, so not even, you don't even have to remove any toon counters either. So if you have 4 counters on him, this is 0 cost, remove 4 threat with no downside. Again, it fluctuates because you could have this in your hand when you have no toon counters or a single toon counter, and then it's really just a dead card. But regardless, I think that, you know, you're going to have toon counters on Spider Ham enough, it seems like, that even if you're hitting for 2 or 3, for 0 cost, that is still worth it, and you're not having to rely on having to spend another card to use it. So Ham It Up seems like it's very powerful and has the potential to be ridiculously powerful as well. Next up, we have Hogwashed. So this is a 1-cost event. This is where we start to get into the areas of Spider Ham where I could see why people thought this was definitely an April Fool's joke. Because the ability here is hero action, remove 1 toon counter from Spider Ham, loudly read this card's flavor text, which is pow, bam, whack, smack, bonk. And then choose to either deal 5 damage to a minion or remove 5 threat from a side scheme. Very powerful card. Again, keep in mind this is limited to minions that you're dealing the damage to or side scheme that you're removing the threat from. So at first you're going to think 1 cost for 5 damage or 5 threat is ridiculous, which it is very powerful. But again, you are limited to minions. No, you can't hit the villain with this, and side schemes. You can't take out the main scheme with this. So there are some limitations that bring the power level down, but still a very powerful card. For 1 to be able to do this all just for removing a single toon counter is very powerful. Again, it's hard to gauge just how powerful, because if toon counters are always going to be in short supply, if the average amount you're ever going to have on a hero is say 3, or on Spider Ham is 3 or 4, removing 1 is a big deal because you're limiting yourself in other areas. So at that point it's not quite as powerful, but regardless, this is a very good card. And not trying to downplay it all, it's hard to really gauge how powerful it is until we test the hero. Next up, we have I Don't Think So, which is a 1-cost event, hero interrupt. When you reveal a card from the encounter deck, remove 1 toon counter from Spider Ham, say I don't think so in your best Spider Ham voice, cancel the effects of that card and discard it. Again, I would imagine that reading the flavor or saying out loud the text I don't think so is probably optional, but you might be with a group that says if you don't read I don't think so, you void the card, which at that point, that's probably the right way to play. So the ability here is really good. I mean, for 1 cost, again, to remove 1 toon counter and completely negate an encounter card is ridiculously powerful. Even if toon counters are in short supply, having that to reliably, fall back on to say if we all of a sudden flip a card that is going to really screw up the board state or really put us in a jam when we had things under control, to just say I remove a single counter and completely cancel that effect, really, really good. We're seeing that with a lot of Spider Ham's cards. Really just removing 1 counter gets you a whole lot of mileage on his abilities. This one is no exception, so very excellent card. Next up, we have Organic Webbing. So this is a 2-cost upgrade. Spider Ham gets +1 thwart, so this is part of his kit. Hero action, exhaust Organic Webbing and remove 1 toon counter from Spider Ham. Ready Spider Ham, he gains the aerial trait until end of phase. Really interesting addition with the aerial trait, because from the cards we've seen here, there's no real, it's thematically, it's great. The swinging on the webbing, he has aerial, I think that's awesome. But we have no way to use the aerial trait inherently with the cards we've been shown so far here, especially because it's only till the end of the phase. So you're really gonna have to, if you want to utilize the aerial trait, you're going to have to build a deck in such a way that you have enough aerial cards that you're going to hit this often enough. But again, because it's staying in play and you're able to, exhaust it whenever you want, you should be able to hit that, and you're likely going to build a deck with some aerial cards in there if that's the direction you want to go. Even if we take out the aerial existence here, getting 1 thwart just organically, naturally, by having this card in play for 2 cost, and then also being able to ready Spider Ham whenever you want for 1 toon counter is really, really good. Again, not as good as we've seen for some heroes with readying, because his base stats are pretty low. Readying him isn't necessarily going to have nearly as much of an impact as it might have with other heroes, but that being said, +1 thwart puts him up to 3 thwart, and he has an inherent justice hero, which means that just being able to get 6 threat removal in a single turn by doing 3, readying him, doing another 3, is a huge deal, and I think it's going to be really good. So this seems like a really, really good card, and it's going to be one of those kick cards you want to hopefully get earlier on in the game if possible. Next up, we have Huge Wooden Hammer. This is another 2-cost upgrade. This one you get +1 attack rather than +1 thwart. It's the attack version of that card. Hero Interrupt. When Spider-Ham makes a basic attack, exhaust Huge Wooden Hammer and remove 1 toon counter from Spider-Ham. Spider-Ham gets +2 attack for that attack, and it gains Overkill, which means that his base attack is 1. This boosts it to 2, and attacking with Wooden Hammer boosts it to 4 with Overkill. Really, really good, especially because he doesn't have very strong base attack. So if that's something you're going to want to do if you're playing solo with Spider-Ham and you don't have a lot of options in how you're going to take the villain down, this is going to be one of those things that's really going to change the course of the game for you and allow you to get more damage in when maybe normally you're not able to. So really, really cool card. Thematically, it's awesome. This is probably the best spot to say. I don't know a whole lot about Spider-Ham, but I will say that one of the only comics I had growing up was a Spider-Ham comic, and I wish I still had it because I honestly don't remember what issue it is, what happened in it, but I was aware of the existence of Spider-Ham, even though I wasn't like inherently aware of the whole universe and some of the other characters that come into it. It's cool to see some of this artwork and some of that come out in these cards. So that is Huge Wooden Hammer. All right, let's talk about the signature ally, which might be my favorite signature ally of all time, and that is Captain Americat. I was not aware of this character. I was aware of Spider-Ham. I was not aware of Captain Americat. This is genius. I love it. 3-cost ally with 3 health, 2 thwart, 2 attack, a consequential damage on each. Really good stat line all around. After Captain Americat enters play, give someone a high 5. That's not a new count or anything. Literally, give someone at the table a high 5. If you're playing solo, give yourself a high 5. We always have to give ourselves a little pat on the back and a high 5 whenever you can. Place 1 toon count. I should have just ended it there. That's the ability. Give yourself a high 5. The rest of the ability is place 1 toon counter on your identity and shuffle 1 Spider-Ham card from your discard pile into your deck. So again, toon counters are super important. They have so much power on them because they are a little bit sparse and aren't always going to be super reliably added on to Spider-Ham, that just getting one naturally by playing Americat is going to incentivize you playing this card. But on top of that, you're going to be able to look for a card in your discard pile and shuffle that back into your deck. You're not going to get it immediately, but some of the more powerful cards that are in there, especially if you're playing solo, and for instance, you really needed your Wooden Hammer that got discarded, or you really needed some way to do damage when you don't have someone else to rely on to do that, you're able to shuffle those cards back into your deck and get some of those back. So this seems like a really solid card all around. Signature allies usually are. This one is no different. Next up, we have Petulant Pig. This card seems ridiculously powerful. This is a 0-cost event that just says, hero action, stick your tongue out at the villain, and then the villain attacks you, draw 3 cards. So you take an attack, and you draw 3 cards. One of the reasons this seems so powerful is 3 card draw for 0 is ridiculous. Yes, you're taking an attack, but taking attacks gets you toon counters. So really, you can look at this as 0 cost, draw 3 cards, get a toon counter, and the only downside is you take a single attack from the villain, which honestly, you're not playing this card if you're in a position where you're going to die from a single attack, so it's not usually going to be that big of a deal. You're probably going to do that at a time when you can also reliably go back to Alter Ego and recovery for 5. This card just seems ridiculous. Like, again, it's one of those things without playing it, it's hard to really know for sure, but this just seems like a card that's going to be so, I don't want to say broken because it's not going to necessarily break the game, but whenever you have it in your hand, I can't imagine anytime you would not be ecstatic and just be playing it whenever you can, because 3 card draw for 0 and a toon counter is just nuts. Really ridiculous card. Next up, we have Cartoon Physics, another really good card. 1-cost upgrade, interrupt when your identity would take any amount of damage, discard this card, wiggle your body, and prevent all but 1 of that damage. A couple reasons why this is great. One, the obvious is you're negating whatever damage is incoming and just reducing it to a single damage, which is awesome. But again, every time you take damage, you get a toon counter. So you're getting a toon counter for only taking a single damage, which is the dream overall. You want to be taking single damage whenever possible with Spider-Ham to get a toon counter for very little. This is guaranteeing that, and it only costs 1 to have this in play, and you can use it when that damage is incoming, right? So awesome card, another really important card I think in Spider-Ham's kit, especially when building up the toon counters to have that engine going. I think this is going to be one of those cards anytime it's in your hand, it's rare that you're not going to play it because of how cheap it is as well. All right, we are done with the Spider-Ham cards. We're going into the Justice cards where the thematics change a little bit, less cartoony and more what we're used to seeing from Marvel Champions. This is a new ally. It's called Lady Spider, 4-cost ally, 4 health, 2 thwart, 2 attack, but 2 consequential damage on both of those. Response: after Lady Spider thwarts and removes threat from a scheme if you control another Web Warrior card, which I should have mentioned this is a Web Warrior. Remove an equal amount of threat from a different side scheme. So you're able to double up and do two side schemes instead of just the one if you have another Web Warrior in play. We're going to see a bunch of cards that have this condition of having to have a Web Warrior in play. I imagine that, because normally I would grade a card like this and I would say, oh, it's good, but it's very conditional on this one ability, so it's only going to be as good as your deck building skills are. Not your deck building skills, but your ability to build around this card. That being said, I don't see any case where any of these Web Warrior cards that have this ability that ties into other Web Warriors where you're not going to only really include them in decks where you are building Web Warrior decks. They're so dependent on that really without them, they're just not really good enough to make the cut. Especially on a 4-cost ally, you're never going to include Lady Spider in a non-Web Warrior built deck, because if you take that ability off the page, it's just 4 cost for 4 health and 2/2 with 2 consequential damage, which is really bad. So as a Web Warrior, I think it's good. It's an expensive ally. I think it's really going to depend on how many slots you have for these Web Warrior specific cards, what your needs are for allies with higher health like this that maybe cost more but can do a lot of thwarting. So it seems like the potential's there, but it's I think a card that I'm going to have to wait to really give a stronger opinion on until I've actually played with it. All right, next up we have Spider-Man and new alter ego version of Spider-Man. I'm not even going to pronounce the actual alter ego's name here because my pronunciation skills are awful and I will absolutely butcher it. This is a new Spider-Man, 3-cost ally, 3 health, 1 thwart, 1 attack, consequential damage on each. The response is after Spider-Man enters play, and it has to be this Spider-Man, it can't be a different Spider-Man, remove 1 threat from a scheme for each Web Warrior card you control. So you're going to remove 1 threat, and you can do that multiple times. And the reason I specify it like that is it's not that, if you have 3 Web Warriors in play, you remove 3 threat from 1 scheme. You still remove 1 threat 3 times. So you can split that among schemes if you want, which makes it a lot more versatile and better. So this has the potential to be a very strong card. It really depends, again, on your Web Warrior presence. If you're playing a hero card that has Web Warrior, you're always going to hit this for twice at least, which means you're removing 2 threat for just playing this card, which is good. It's not, it's not broken. It's not amazing, but it's good enough to see play. If you're hitting it for the max with the 4, that's when this is really going to hit unbelievable value. So I think, again, it's one of those cards that it has the potential to be really, really good. It really just depends on what your deck looks like and how many Web Warriors are in play when you play it. Next up, we have Overwatch. This is a 0-cost Justice upgrade attached to a scheme. When any amount of threat is removed from the attached scheme by a thwart, discard this card, remove an equal amount of threat from a different scheme. So you attach this to a scheme, you thwart with Spider-Ham, you remove 3 threat, you discard this, and now you can remove another 3 threat from another scheme. So ideally you want to do this when you're going to hit with a big thwart and you're essentially doubling the amount across another scheme. So we're seeing a lot of cards that are really benefiting by there being multiple schemes in play. I think that you're going to include Overwatch when you're taking on villains, when you're expecting to have multiple side schemes in play, when you need to have that management across them. In that case, for 0 cost and really just having to do something you'd already be doing by just thwarting, this is a really good card. I imagine this is for sure going to see play. It really just depends which villain you're playing against. Next up, we have Even the Odds. This is a 2-cost event. Requirement is a energy resource that needs to be used to play it. Hero action, remove 1 per player threat from each side scheme. Deal 1 damage to the villain for each side scheme defeated this way. Defeated this way, not hit this way. So this is a multiplayer card. If you're playing solo, I don't think this is very good, in my opinion. In fact, I would hazard to say that you'd almost never include this playing solo. I could be wrong. Let me know if you find a situation where you think, like, yes, you absolutely want to include it. But for 2 cost, to just remove 1 threat from each side, I guess, even as I'm saying, it depends how many side schemes are in play. I'm looking at it thinking it's only 1 threat removal, but again, then it just becomes even more situational. If you have 5 side schemes in play because the villain you're playing is just pumping out side schemes, removing 1 across all of them, you likely will defeat some, but the other condition being to defeat them, you'd have to have them all low enough to really have this hit and do a bunch of damage to the villain. So it is very situational, but if you're playing a villain that has a lot of side schemes, if you've gotten them low, if you're even playing with 2 players and this is 2 threat across them, this has the potential to really gain control of a board that maybe has gotten out of control with these side schemes, and especially if you defeat a bunch, you're also getting damage on top of it. So the potential's there. I'd say the condition to hit that potential is a little bit steeper than some of the other cards we've looked at. All right, so keeping up the trend of hero packs, now including modular encounter sets, we get a really difficult one here called the Inheritors. So I'm not familiar with the Inheritors, but apparently they are villains specifically targeting the Spider-Verse heroes. And I think there's 7 of them. Is that it? 7, yes. Or 8, sorry, there's 8 of them. I think we have 5 revealed or 4 revealed we're gonna go over here. I think 4 of them were actually the single cards, and one of them we got revealed in the sort of fan of cards. There's another one we get to see the ability of. So we're gonna go over them here. The thing to keep in mind with them is that they power up based on if there's more of them in play, as we'll see. So the entire Inheritor encounter set is all minions, and if there's ever more than one in play, things are going to start to get really dicey. So this seems like it's going to be a really tough one to deal with when you include it, which is really exciting to have that option now. So Bora is the first one, 5 health, 3 scheme, 1 attack. Each Inheritor minion gains 1 acceleration icon. So if you have 4 other ones in play somehow, you have 4 acceleration icons in play, which is nuts. That has the potential to be one of the worst abilities, or worse in the best way possible out of the ones we're going to look at. That could really, really set you back. So when revealed, on top of that, if a Web Warrior character is in play, place 1 threat on each side scheme. Again, really difficult card to deal with. This one seems really powerful. Next, we have Brix, 1 scheme, 2 attack, 5 health. Each Inheritor minion gains Patrol. When revealed, if a Web Warrior character is in play, place 2 threat on the main scheme. So the last one was 1 across all the side schemes, was it? Or all schemes? Each scheme in general. Now you're getting 2 threats specifically on the main scheme. I think the other one's probably worse. Again, it depends how many schemes are in play than this one. Brix doesn't seem quite as difficult as Bora. Bora honestly seems like one of the more difficult ones to deal with out of all of them. Brix, I think, is a little bit more manageable. Next one is Daemos. This is 1 scheme, 3 attack, 6 health. Each Inheritor minion gains Stalwart. That one is ridiculous. That is the fact. Again, it depends how many are in play, but if you have multiples in play, for them all to gain Stalwart is really difficult to deal with. If one of your ways to manage them was to stun or confuse them, now you don't even have that option. When revealed, if a Web Warrior character is in play, stun a character you control. Also awful. So far, Bora and Daemos are really, really bad. I think Brix is just a little bit more manageable. Next, we have Jennix. These names are very weird. 2 scheme, 2 attack, 6 health. Each Inheritor minion gains Guard. When revealed, if a Web Warrior character is in play, give Jennix a tough status card. Again, has 6 health already. Adding a tough status card means that it's even more difficult to get rid of him, but he's not, honestly, one of the worst ones that we've seen, so not getting rid of him immediately isn't the end of the world, as long as you can deal with the guards that the Inheritors are going to have then. Then we have Solus. Solus is a 2 scheme, 3 attack, 7 health, a really strong stat line, and each Inheritor minion gains Villainous, which means they're getting boost cards on all their attacks and thwarts, which is really, really bad. When revealed, if Web Warrior characters in play, give Solus a face down boost card. Really powerful card. This one is... It's hard to really say which one's the worst, which one's the easiest, but that one, Solus and Bora, are probably the ones that worry me the most to have to deal with out of all the ones that we had revealed, just based on their stat line and the abilities that they're bringing to the table. And the last one that wasn't given to us as a single card but was included in the fan is, I'm going to have to bring the laptop closer to this one. This one's very small. My eyesight's not great. This is Verna. Each Inheritor minion gains Retaliate 1. When revealed, if a Web Warrior character is in play, deal 1 damage to each character you control. Again, not the worst thing. One scheme, 1 attack, 6 health. Stat line is really low, health is high, but honestly, Retaliate 1 in play sucks, but it's not the end of the world compared to some of the other ones that we've seen here as well. So that's everything we got revealed. Spider-Ham seems really cool. The thematic snap-up might not be for everybody. This is obviously a bit of a joke hero in some ways. Parody is, I guess, the better way to word that. But that being said, they've compensated for that by giving us a really potentially powerful hero here. I mean, some of the cards we see that have 0 cost or 1 cost, and the amount of threat removal or the amount of damage they're doing is just way higher than we've seen at those counts in the past. Again, it's all dependent on these tune counters, but if you're able to reliably get tune counters in Spider-Ham, I think he has the potential to be one of the more powerful heroes we've been introduced. And honestly, the artworks and the thematics don't bother me. I think it's really cool. I love that we get this kind of, after having so many heroes that, have a bit more of a serious tone on them, and I shouldn't say serious, but more focused in the thematics and how they all kind of sort of tie in with each other. Spider-Ham stands to the side, you know, stands alone amongst them, and I think that's kind of cool to have for the game and to shake things up. So Spider-Ham seems neat. It is not an April Fool's joke. This is a legitimate hero. Let me know in the comments what you think of Spider-Ham. Did you think it was an April Fool's joke? Do you still think it's an April Fool's joke that we're going to find out about? And are you looking forward to Spider-Ham? I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those heroes that some people are just deciding this is going to be one they pass on. But I would say don't sleep on Spider-Ham just because it seems more of a parody pack, because it seems like despite the parody, it is very, very strong. So thank you so much for watching this video. Sorry it's a little bit later than normal. I'm going to hopefully be able to, on the future previews now, be able to get them out that same day like I normally do, as long as they don't catch me again on a day when I have stuff going on. Write to Fantasy Flight and say, listen, you don't have to consult Dylan, but you need to at least stop looking at his calendar and picking the worst day possible to release previews. That being said, I will have Sinister Motives content next weekend. We're gonna be receiving it on April 8th, so I likely will put out the first hero video on Sunday. The following hero review will be Monday, and it'll be probably till the next weekend, which will be, I guess, April 16th, April 17th, whatever the Sunday is, that I'll put out the review of the entire pack. I'll need more time to actually do the full review and explore everything. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. As always, if you wanna join us on Discord and converse with us, talk about a bunch of stuff, board game related, non-board game related, you can find the link to our Discord below. Let me know what you think of Spider-Ham. Let me know what you think of the new studio look. If you have any feedback, suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. You'll probably likely see the games that are on these shelves and stuff change over time, even for each video, depending on what we want to highlight. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.